Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from the third group. My name is Excellency Pratiwi and my partner.
Okay, my name is Ayu Kartika.
Okay, today our group will explain about the experimental design. So the first material will be explained by me, and the last material will be explained by my partner Ayu Kartika. The definition of experimental design. So what is experimental design? Experimental design is a method of research in the social science, such as sociology and psychology, in which a controlled experimental factor is subjected to special treatment for purpose of comparison with a factor kept constant. An experiment is a type of research method in which you manipulate one or more independent variables and measure their effects on one or more dependent variables. Experimental design means creating a set of procedure to test a hypothesis and planning a set of procedure to investigate a relationship between variables. To design a control experiments, you need a testable hypothesis, at least one independent that can be precisely manipulated, and then at least one dependent variable that can be precisely measured. So when designing the experiment, you decide how you will manipulate the variables, how you will control for any potential confounding variables, how many subject or sample will be included in the study, and then how subject will be assigned to treatment levels. So when do you use an experiment? You use an experiment when you want to establish the possible cause and effect between your independent and dependent variables. So what is the differences between independent and dependent variables? Independent variables is the variables manipulated by the researchers, so said to be independent because no other variables in the study influence its value, but while dependent variables is the one observed to assess the effect to treatment, so said to be dependent because its value is thought to depend on the value of the independent variables. This means that independent variables that you attempt to control all variables that influence the outcome except for the independent variables. Then when the independent variables influence the dependent variables, we can say the dependent variables is cause or probably cause the dependent variables. Because experiments are controlled, they are the best of the quantitative designed to use to establish probably cause and effect. For example, if you compare one group that experienced a lecture and another group that experienced discussion, you control all of the factor that might influence the outcomes of high score on a quiz. You make sure that personal abilities and test conditions are the same for both group, and you give both group the same question. You control for all variables that might influence the outcome except for the differences between types of instruction, lecture, or discussion. You also use an experiment when you have two or more group to study, as in this lecture versus example discussion. And then the characteristic is the experimental design. So the experimental design has seek the characteristic. There are the first random assessment. After developing an appropriate sampling method, a researcher needs to randomly assign individual to the different group of the study. One of the main research for doing this is to remove the bias of individual differences in all groups of the study. For example, if you are doing a study of intelligence, you want to make sure that all group have the same characteristic of intelligence. This help for the groups to equate or to the or to or to be the same This prevents people from saying the reason there are differences between groups is because the group are different and not because of the treatment. The second, the characteristic is control over external variables. Random assignment directly leads to the concern of controlling external variables. External variables are any factor that might influence the cause and effect relationship that you are trying to establish. This other factor confound or confuse the result of a study. There are several methods for dealing with this, as shown below. Pretest post-test, homogeneous sampling, covariate, and matching. Pretest post-test. A pretest post-test allows a researcher to compare a measurement of something before the treatment and after the treatment. The assumption is that any difference in the score of before and after is due to the treatment. Doing the test takes into account the confounding of the different context of the setting and individual characteristic. Be homogeneous sampling. This approach involves selecting people who are highly similar on the particular trait that is being measured. This removes the problem of individual differences when attempting to interpret the result. The more similar the subject in the sample are, the more controlled the trait of the people are controlled for. The C, covariates is a statistical approach in which controls are placed on the dependent variables through statistical analysis. The influence of other variables are removed from the explained various of the dependent variables. Covariates help to explain more about the relationship between the independent and dependent variables. This is a difficult concept to understand. However, the point is that you use covariates to explain in greater details the relationship between the independent and dependent variables by removing other variables that might explain the relationship. D, matching. Matching is the deliberate rather than randomly assigning subject to various groups. For example, if you are looking at intelligence, you make match high achievers in both groups of the study. By placing high achievers in both groups, you cancel out their difference. So the third The third characteristic is manipulating treatment condition. Once you select participants, you randomly assign them to either a treatment condition or the experimental group. In experimental treatment, the researcher physically interact to alter the condition experienced by the experimental unit. For example, in our high school, the researcher would manipulate one form of interaction in the special class, providing activity on the health hazard of smoking. Specifically, the procedure would be the first: identify a treatment variables such as type of classroom instruction in the chief class. The second, identify the condition or level of the variables such as classroom instruction can be regular topic or topics related to the health hazard of smoking. And the last, manipulate the treatment condition such as provide special activities on health hazard of smoking to one class and without them from another class. And then the fourth, the characteristic of the experimental design is outcome measure. In all experimental situation, you assess whether a treatment condition, influence and outcomes or dependent variables such as reduce rate of smoking or achievement on test. In experiment, the outcomes is the dependent variable, that is presumed effect of the treatment variables. It is also the effect predicted in a hypothesis in the cause and effect equation. The fifth, the characteristic is group comparison. In an experiment, you also compare score for different treatment on an outcome. A group comparison is the process of researchers obtaining scores for individual or groups on the dependent variables and comparing the means and variance both within the groups and between the groups. The experimental groups reaches a treatment of some sort, while the control group research no treatment and enables the researchers to determine whether the treatment has had an effect and whether one treatment is more effective than another. So the last characteristic is threats to validity. A final idea in experiment is to design them so that the inference you draw are true or correct. Threats to draw these correct inferences need to be addressed in experimental research. So the four types of validity they discuss are the first, statistical conclusion validity, which refers to the appropriate use of statistic, for example, violating statistical assumption, restricted ring on a variable, low power, and then etc. And the second, construct validity, which means the validity of inferences about the construct for variables in the study. The third The third, internal validity. Internal validity, which relates to the validity of inferences drawn about the cause and effect relationship between the independent and dependent variables. So, internal validity refers specifically to whether an experimental treatment or condition makes a difference or not, and whether there is sufficient evidence to support the claim. The last, external validity. External validity, which refers to the validity of the cause and effect relationship being generalizable to other person, setting, treatment, variable, and measure. So, external validity refers to the generalizability of the treatment or condition outcomes. So, I think just enough for me. The last material will be explained by my partner Ayu Kartika. For Ayu Kartika, time is yours.
The next material explained by me, the tips of experimental design. A talk all experiments have common characteristics. Their use and application vary depending on the type of design used. The most common design you will in educational research where are one, between group design A, theory experiments, B, quiz set experiment, 3, factorial design, 2, with group or individual design. A, theme reset experiments, B, repeated Morse experiment, C, single subject experiments. Okay, through experiment compress the most rigorous and strong experimental design because of equating the group talk random assessments. 2. Quiz set experiment. In education, many experimental situations occur which research need to use context group. This makes even because of the availability of prohibits forming an artificial group. Request experiment include assessment but not random assessment of participants to group. Next, factor design. In someone experiment situation, it is not enough to know the effect of a single treatment on common variable. Several treatment impacts provide a better explanation for the outcome. Factorial design reference modification of the between group design in which the research study two or more categorical independent variable and examine it at 2-hour level. Next, the records independent formulates a reset question that includes two independent variables and one independent variable. Use door of smoking vary under independent combination of type of interaction and level of difference. To answer this question, the experimenter independs the level of each factor in independent variable. Factor 1 type in instruction A level 1 a hazard lecture in this class. B level 2 standard lecture in living class. Factor 2 level of differentiation A level 1 mix. B level 2 medium. C level 3 large. With group or individual design. And give experiment the number of artifacts be limit and them be possible involve more than and group. This type of design assessment several from team series, repeated marks, and single subject design. Team series design is good experimental approach. Team series design consists of studying one group over time with multiple phrase and the poster most or observation may be the research. Okay, next. Two reported marks. In reported marks design, all participants in single group participate in all experimental. Aku menjelaskan dari diskusi saya tadi. Through experiments, method to experiments penyelidikan kemungkinan hubungan sebab akibat dengan desain di mana secara nyata akan ada kelompok perlakuan dan kelompok kontrol dan through experiments penyelidikan kemungkinan hubungan sebab akibat dengan desain di mana secara nyata ada kelompok perlakuan dan kelompok kontrol dan membandingkan hasil perilaku dengan kontrol secara ketat. Validitas internal dan eksternal cukup utuh. Bertujuan untuk menyelidik mungkin berhubungan akibat dengan desain secara nyata, perilaku kelompok dikontrol dan perbanding hasil berlaku dengan kontrol yang tidak dikenai kondisi perilaku. Contohnya, penelitian untuk menyelidik pengaruh dua metode pengajar sejarah pada murid-murid kelas 3 SMA sebagai fungsi ukuran kelas dan tarif inteligensi murid. Quintet experiments. Penelitian adalah kegiatan percobaan yang bertujuan untuk mengetahui suatu gejala atau pengaruh yang timbul sebagai akibat dari adanya perilaku tertentu. Next, factorial design. Maksudnya di sini suatu desain environment di mana seluruh level dari suatu faktor dikombinasikan dengan seluruh level dari faktor-faktor lainnya. Eksperimen digunakan untuk menyelidik secara kebersamaan efek beberapa faktor lainnya. Time series maksudnya sini serangkaian titik data yang independen dalam ukuran waktu yang paling umum. Deret waktu adalah urutan yang diambil pada titik yang sama sederajat dengan dalam waktu. Contoh deret waktu adalah ketinggian pasang surut laut, jumlah bintik matahari, dan nilai penutup harian. Repeated measure bertujuan untuk menguji apakah ada perbedaan secara nyata atau signifikan dari berbagai hasil pengukuran yang dilakukan berulang-ulang pada suatu variabel penelitian. Single subject design seperti penelitian di kelas saja. Penelitian sebagian segala fakta-fakta itu bisa menjadi ekstrovert individual yang dipeneliti misalnya secara segala macam yang ada pada individu, jenis kelamin, umur juga termasuk kondisi yang berhubungan dengan setting penelitian, seperti penelitian di kelas, bukan saja penelitian secara formal. Contohnya, siswa terlambat lalu diberikan referensi common tetapi terlambat secara siswa itu sakit. Contohnya, setelah siswa membaca, guru memberi feedback korektif atau kembalikan korektif. Independen perilaku membaca. Dependen perilaku membaca. Independennya guru memberi feedback pada siswa. Desain single subject penelitian mengetahui sebab dan akibat antara variabel independen dan dependen.
Okay, thank you for Ayu Kartika. Okay guys, the conclusion about our material is experiments are relatively new in research. This design has grown and matured over the years to become a powerful method for determining cause and effect. Therefore, researchers should aware of this approach for use in their studies. Experimental design is essential to be internal and external validity of your experiment. So a good experiment has a powerful intervention, few group in number, derived in some systematic way, and where individual will gain from the experiment. So I think just enough from our presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.